subject we are wrestling with today is renewable energy and energy efficiency, the opportunities and threats for SMEs. Ed Davey.
Well, thank you very much, John and Richard, for inviting me. And what was clear from that tour de table is that I should try to get onto questions and answers soon, because you probably know a lot more than I'm going to say already. There's a lot of expertise around the table. I should say, though, on SMEs, we are focused as a government on SMEs in the broadest sense. But in energy, we've been doing some work, working actually with number 10, to ensure that the experience of SMEs with their energy suppliers is a lot happier one than we've seen in recent times. We have seen a lot of concerns from small business organisations that our members are saying some of the contracts that roll over without proper notice, some of the treatment of SMEs by some of the bigger energy suppliers has been really not satisfactory. We've seen some progress before we've actually taken action. We've now got a protocol to try to improve that. So that's one of the biggest issues that we've been doing directly with SMEs. But we're concerned when it comes to renewables and energy efficiency to do as much as we can to both help SMEs generate where it's appropriate for them to generate. We talk about rural areas, of course, but there are other areas as well. In cities, people want large rooftops, for example. But also, and this affects, I guess, almost every single SME you can imagine, improve energy efficiency and reduce their waste. And let me start on that, because I think that's for everybody in the SME sector. Clearly, recent rises in energy bills, driven primarily by wholesale costs and network costs, have focused people's minds on energy costs in a way that wasn't the case a few years ago. We've seen about 10 years of constant energy price rises, so that's seen it come up the list of priorities. From outside the energy intensive industries and the small manufacturing industries, energy has traditionally been a very small part of the overall costs, therefore has not been something that people have worried about. But I think increasingly you're seeing that, particularly in certain sectors like retail, where they've got a lot of freezers and fridges and they've got devices that consume a lot of energy, and you're beginning to see them really worried about this part of the cost. So the good news is there's a huge amount of technology, as you all know, that can massively reduce people's bills actually very quickly with quite attractive payback periods. And where the market works, you could argue there's not a dramatic role for government beyond things like providing information, ensuring people know what's available. But that inevitably there are some things that people would need to do that have longer payback periods but are quite important to capture, whether we're talking about carbon emissions or trying to assist small businesses. And again, there's targeted interventions are things that government may need to do to take those to make things more affordable, more sensible. We published an energy efficiency strategy earlier this year, I can't remember the exact date, which looked at where we think the role for government is in different sectors, although it was both domestic and non-domestic. And I'm keen to sort of get feedback from that and the other aspect of energy efficiency policy. I'm particularly interested in the new pilots we'll be running this year on electricity demand reduction. One of the reasons I'm keen to get into the market, an actual incentive that energy service companies or other aggregators could use, is I think they would see small businesses as one of the key sectors for them to go to collect up the energy efficiency savings and create business plans around that, which could work not just for individual businesses but for groups of businesses, be they on industrial estates or in the same high street or wherever. So I think that policy innovation, I hope, over time will give a real extra boost to this sector. I think I should talk about the non-domestic Green Deal, which at the moment isn't doing very much. Partly because we are trying to make sure that the Green Deal for the domestic customers works better than it has been doing, and I think there will be there's lots of good news on that front. But inevitably, we do need to do more work on the non-domestic side. I think the model will need to be tweaked for non-domestics, because there's much greater heterogeneity in the SME sector in their buildings and premises and needs, but nevertheless, for a large number of SMEs, it will potentially make sense. The question they will have to grapple with, though, is whether the cost of finance is the ones that's appropriate for them, because they may have access to cheaper finance potentially than some of the domestic customers that Green Deal is really focused on. So moving on from the energy efficiency piece to the renewables, I'm extremely excited in the rural areas for businesses, and yes, it's farms because they've got a lot of land and therefore wind turbines, anaerobic digestion and so on are suitable. But actually a lot of SMEs, if they have some land, everything from different forms of renewable heat, whether it's ground source, air source, or my particular favourite water source based heat pumps are coming on, and of course biomass. So there is, we're seeing with the non-domestic RHI huge interest in these different technologies, and I think people are getting better and better at understanding where they are appropriate and where they work best. So keen to hear from you where you think we need to improve to help SMEs get the benefit of these technologies. I guess in my final comments is that what is critical, I think, in all energy and climate change policy is trying to get as much political consensus, as much financial and legal certainty and stability in policy. Actually, despite all the political noise you hear, it's astonishing how much consensus there is. You can go back to the Climate Change Act when there was a handful of MPs who voted against it. You can look at the energy bill in its third reading in the House of Commons when only 8 MPs voted against it, all the front benches supported it. If you push Labour beyond their price freeze nonsense, you find that they actually support everything in the energy bill. And they support electricity market reform, they support a lot of our policies which will be appropriate on renewable energy and even energy efficiency for SMEs. So I think while I'm not going to pretend the political consensus is what it was, on the fundamentals I believe it's still there, and that's an important message. I think in terms of the legal and financial stability and certainty, I think by and large we are really powering ahead there. I'm sure you could point out to the problems that we have had along the way, the most notable one being the feed-in tariffs and the review of feed-in tariffs. But the fact we now have a digression framework, I think, gives stability. We learn from policy design mistakes, and we're trying to ensure that future policy is designed to create that certainty and stability. You might want to refer to the recent changes to ECO, which we'll be consulting, proposals to change, which we'll be consulting on shortly. But I would argue the package of measures that we've got for the energy efficiency industry is probably more attractive than the ones than we had before we made the recent changes, but I'm sure that's a potentially controversial statement. So inevitably along the way you do have to make some changes, and when you're creating new policies, and the Green Deal is a world first, the renewable heat incentive is a world first, no one's done anything as ambitious as the EMR before to create the world's first low carbon electricity market. When you're innovating in that policy sphere, and in a policy sphere that's got huge technological change, getting stability and certainty at the level and the speed you want has challenges. But it never leaves me as the thought that that is what we're trying to achieve, and I think we are making progress. But I'm keen to hear from you where we can make further progress so we can deliver for business. The whole objective is to make sure we have affordable energy, clean energy and secure energy, and we are making actually tens of billions of pounds of progress along that route, and we want to make sure that it filters down to every nook and cranny of the economy.
Ed, thank you very much.